Good morning, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another book review. And let's just get started. So, what if everything you thought you knew about your past was a lie? 7 Years of Darkness by Jeong You-jeong is a gripping, atmospheric, psychological thriller that unravels the dark secrets behind a shocking crime, a haunting mystery, an eerie lakeside setting, and a past that refuses to stay buried. This is a novel that lingers long after the final page. So let's get started. And I apologize if I seem a little tired. I'm trying to quit coffee just now, so I haven't had any coffee this morning. So today's book is a psychological crime thriller called 7 Years of Darkness by Jeong You-jeong, translated by Chi-young Kim. And it was originally published in 2011 in Korean. And the English translation was published in 2020, and at the time it was published, it was very quite an eagerly anticipated translation. And the reason for this was because Chong's first novel to be translated into English was the very popular and successful The Good Son. And that novel was very clever and an imaginative spin on the serial killer novel, and it actually received quite a lot of attention internationally, even, for example, on American TV shows. I can't remember who it was now. Was it Jimmy Fallon or the other guy? But they had like a summer book club or something like that in 2020, and The Good Son was one of the books they picked for it. And it also received a lot of reviews in the usual prominent publications. And it was one of the books behind the sort of groundswell of hype surrounding Korean crime and genre novels at the time, and still a little bit today. And also, like that previous book, like The Good Son, the translator is this very talented translator, Kim Chi-young, who's done a lot of very high-profile work for Shin Kyung-suk and Kim Young-ha and many other people. And so this novel, 7 Years of Darkness, was following The Good Son, and so people were excited for it at the time. And the 7 Years of Darkness, too, like The Good Son, is a deviously plotted and ingeniously structured crime novel about a series of murders. And it's tense, violent, and it's a very gripping story. And just like The Good Son, it's also very smart, very nasty, and just very imaginative. So I don't really want to give too much away about the story. Is this working properly today? I'm sorry, I'm really not wide awake yet. Okay, I think everything's okay. So yeah, I don't want to give too much of the story away. I don't want to give too much of the story away, because one of the joys of this novel is this very devious plot, and the way that Chong sort of doles out critical pieces of the puzzle, and then how all of these twists and turns lock together at various points in the narrative. So I'll only talk about the how the story is established in the first few pages, so only really the first chapter. So don't worry about spoilers. So the setting is an isolated village in the countryside called Seryong Lake, and it is located by a large dam and reservoir system. And also, importantly, this village is adjacent to, or in the vicinity of, a completely submerged village. And this other sort of flooded, submerged village becomes important at various points in the story. The story starts with a young boy called Che So-won. So-won's father is arrested by the police for the murder of a little girl and also possibly his wife. and maybe other as yet unidentified people. And initially, the motive is unclear. There doesn't seem to be a compelling motive for these murders. Nevertheless, the So-won's father is convicted of these crimes. He spends, he goes to prison for the rest of his life, and So-won spends the next several years of his life being sort of shuttled around and kicked around various distant family members, none of whom want to look after him or take him in due to the stigma of him being the son of this murderer. So one attends a bunch of different schools. He is obviously quite traumatized, and he becomes an outcast in each of these schools when people sort of work out who he is. And then the story jumps forward several years, and so one understandably is something of a loner. And one day he receives a parcel containing several letters and a manuscript about the events leading up to the murder of this little girl. And suddenly it seems quite apparent that the accepted and established sequence of events leading up to this little girl's murder just isn't true or accurate. Something doesn't add up. So, what really happened? Who sent him this package? And from there, the story reaches into the past. So that's all sort of established within the first couple of pages. So I don't want to talk too much about the plot just now. So, what is it that draws Chong to these types of nasty, sort of vicious stories? And she gave a couple of interviews around the time this book was published, and I've got a couple of nice quotes to share. So she said, where is it? Okay. So she said she likes a certain type of story. So, for example, a story of a foolish person who could have chosen the right path but goes the other direction. Or that of the unluckiest person who cannot escape the twist of fate, or the one who reveals the ugliest side of human nature. And that's exactly what we see in this novel. The plot hinges on the actions of three men. And again, I won't go into detail here, but these three men all have some knowledge and some connection to these the sort of series of terrible events, these several vicious murders that occur in the space of one night. So one of the men has an outwardly respectable position in society and in his community, but really he's a monster in his thoughts and ultimately in his actions. One of the other men is someone who, as a young man, seemed destined for greatness, but ultimately never fulfilled this potential. You have another man who is just in the wrong place at the wrong time and makes a stupid decision, and then another stupid decision, and just this sort of series of awful terrible mistakes. And then there's another person who just witnesses something that they wish they hadn't seen. And then, so over the course of the story, we see how these different men become undone by their nature and by their actions. And so, what is Chong saying or commenting on in regards to human nature and our ability, or in some people's ability, to commit terrible, dreadful crimes? And in that same interview, Chong said that she says that we don't want to face the ugly aspects of humanity, but that we need to. And I've got another nice little quote here. She says, "Being able to face something that you want to avoid, I think that requires inner strength. And I believe the best way to grow that inner strength is by reading literature. A novel at the end is a story of a stranger, and by reading, you get to experience someone else's life through which you gain insight, and that can offer a new perspective on your own life." And so that's essentially what she's doing in the story of the several main characters in this book. We see how their wishes and desires are shaped by the world around them. We see the context for their decisions and actions. We see how they cross paths, how they collide and impact on one another. And it's almost anthropological in the way that she dissects these characters through the story, through the narrative. And yeah, it's very very effective. Chong also has a talent for unusual and disturbing imagery, and we saw that in The Good Son, and we also see that again in this story. So the main way this comes through in 7 Years of Darkness is in the setting. So the location for the main events in the story is very effective. So we have this small village, sort of relatively isolated, but it's next to this dam, this sort of huge dam and reservoir system. And these become sort of very eerie and ominous, sort of fate laden locations in the story. And then also significant is that there is this sort of fully next to the village in the story. There's a fully submerged underwater village that was completely flooded some years earlier, but nevertheless remains, intact. All the buildings are still there, and several characters in the novel are expert divers, and diving features quite prominently in the story at important junctures. And so you have several sequences of people diving in this underwater village, and these sequences are very uncanny and eerie and unsettling, and just very effective in terms of the themes and the story that Chong is telling about buried emotions and so on. And then likewise, there are sort of smaller details that are, very sort of unusual and striking. So one of the characters is obsessed with building miniature replicas of the village buildings, and this sort of features throughout the story, and you might find yourself wondering, why is that detail there? Like, will this amount to why is that there? What's the point of it? And then there's also strange hints of the supernatural or some kind of ghostly activity. And again, this is very sort of unnerving, but is it real? So what is happening with these sort of supernatural elements? And so Jong has a talent for setting up these sort of different tantalizing story elements, and then there's sort of a thrill in seeing how these things develop and play out. So this is definitely a book for crime thriller fans that are looking for something substantial to sink their teeth into. It's a smart, intricate, and imaginative. It's definitely not light reading. Certainly not for the faint-hearted. There's a lot of violence against children, women, and animals. But it is a real achievement in sort of crime fiction, very enjoyable. So if you love psychological thrillers with intricate plotting, or enjoy novels that explore human nature and moral dilemmas, or if you just want a crime novel that's deep and dark and deeply unsettling, then this is definitely something you should think about picking up. You might want to skip this one if you prefer sort of fast paced, action heavy thrillers, because this is definitely more atmospheric and slow burning. And again, if you want a light read, steer clear of this one. Perhaps if you're a fan of things like Gillian Flynn and her sharp objects, this book kind of reminded me of that a little bit. So anyway, what do you think? Do we create our own fate, or are we trapped by circumstances? Please let me know if you've read 7 Years of Darkness, and don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more book reviews and deep dives into Korean fiction, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And as always, thanks for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.